We're now in the post-lunch session, and I recognize Senator Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been a lot said on this bill this morning, and I know that my colleagues that sit on the other side love to hear the mantra, so I will repeat it. Promise made, promise kept. Now, it is interesting that in government's manifesto, there was a promise that said that Barbados is to be, or is expected to be, the first island state to have 100% green, to be 100% green and carbon neutral by 2030. And then there were 8 points laid out that if we could follow some of those, we might get there. And there's a promise that government vehicles and also street lighting should run on clean energy by 2025. But that seems to conflict a little bit with what we're doing now, in that we are, I think, installing LEDs. My thoughts on that were that we will be seeing photovoltaically powered street lighting. There's the promise also that we would have some of our shelters powered by renewable energy, photovoltaics, and that sounds like a fantastic idea, because when there's a disaster and the power goes down, if the photovoltaics survive, then we'll be able to power the shelters. I am not sure if they will withstand category 5s. So far, none have. So, we spoke this morning about the need to maintain the grid. And it's absolutely important that while we develop these things, we do our best to keep that which has been shown to be the most reliable, and that is the grid. China, with its size and its industrial might, only has 5% of its energy needs met by renewable energy. And that's after 20 years of investment and billions of dollars. But that is a huge change. That 5% might sound small, but that is a massive, massive change. It has affected China's land use, and we have not spoken yet of how our plans will affect our land use policy. We all know that to get permission to change land in Barbados from one use to the next takes forever. So we have this vision that solar farms will spring up, and we fly over Barbados to big dark spots producing power. But unless we get the systems in place to move efficiently, it might not happen in time, or it might happen very slowly if we don't act in sync to have these things done. And what will happen to our agricultural land? How will developing solar farms affect agriculture? It is not all bad. There are places in the world where solar farms were started in deserts, and now there's grass growing, and sheep are being farmed among the panels. So it doesn't mean that because you cover the ground with a solar panel that you cannot continue with agriculture. Once again, it needs to be thought. But Mr. President, I have one big worry. If we move in the direction of storage in a massive way, and everything has a lifespan, and Senator Drakes this morning reminded us that ultimately this world as we know it will end because the sun will burn out. Batteries don't live that long. What will we do with all the toxic batteries we'll bring in? Do we have a plan for dealing with the materials that will become obsolete? Will we become an island filled of rubbish? There's been no discussion about it at any level. And I would like to encourage government, before we start the big plans and expand them further, to have some serious discussions about what we will do with all the rubbish in time. Mr. President, I'm obliged to you.
Senator Franklin.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
I promise,
The last.
I promise, Senator Cummings, I'll be brief, and I will be. But I want to speak to this issue, and I want to go a little bit off from where the others have spoken, because they were all dressed in these rose-colored spectacles, and they were seeing Barbados Light and Power in the best possible light. Sir, unfortunately, sir, these are clear. They're not rose-colored. As BL&P. Mind you, BL&P is their problem, and BLP is their problem. But right now, sir, I'm going to concentrate on the ANP. This bill is timely, even though rushed, because the process to get here, it was a bit fast, but this is something that should have happened long ago. So in this regard, I'm going to thank the government for at least trying to put something in place to protect the Barbadians from this monster called BL&P. BL&P, for all of its existence, enjoyed a monopoly on producing power in this country. And they have been ripping us off for years. You imagine, they had a rate increase in 2010. The one before that was 26 years before. You can imagine producing a product, and the price of that product was able to sustain you and your lifestyle for 26 years. That product would have to be sold at such a high price that over all the years of increases, and they were still being able to make a profit. They have been ripping this country off and then throwing a few baubles at people and make people think, oh, they are so nice, they're good corporate citizens and stuff. They were ripping us off left, right, and center. And I'm glad now that they're going to be in check. But let me tell you something. It will get worse before it gets better. You remember 2 years ago, the last administration, for 30 pieces of silver, sold the national insurance shares to Emera to make that the largest shareholder, and then they were able to buy everybody else. You know? That was one of the worst moves. Senator Adams spoke about it this morning. National insurance pension funds were invested in a utility company called BL&P, Barbados Light and Power Company. They are guaranteed a 10% rate of return on their investment. They will always make money. As long as they're in existence, they will make money. But the last administration chose to give away all those future earnings for 30 pieces of silver to fill a hole. You know, it's like the guy in the story we had, they killed the goose that laid the golden egg. When you thought they're going to have more golden eggs, only when they find one. This is what they did to national insurance and the people of Barbados. But what they did with national insurance, they bring Emera down here, and they are not better than anybody else. But what they did now is to bring back this old slavery thing. Emera, as a matter of fact, they have even resorted to kicking staff. Yeah, 2 employees got kicked. And the staff was so frightened and complained. If the one fella said she was only trying to get his attention. Don't drive she for the knee. And what, they actually had a walk-off, but the fellow who led the walk-off has been dismissed for something else. This is what they do here. They come in here, so, and you bring them in here to treat Barbadians rough. Thanks to St. and those people. We didn't need them. Barbados didn't need any investment from Emir or anybody else. Lightning Power was ripping us off all by themselves. We didn't need Emir to do it. So we come in here, and that's one of the reasons now I'm so scared about the government inviting other people to be part of this new dispensation. We're talking about bring investment from outside. But that can defeat the purpose. Barbados, if we do need any technical skills, we can buy them. Pay a consultant, come and show us what to do. We don't need to have their money, because when they bring in their money, they're going to have to send out some money too. So the money that we are spending for oil to produce electricity, we are not going to say we're not going to be spending that, but now we're going to still be sending out money for profits for the people who invest. Barbados can invest in this energy sector. Right now, I've seen the vultures circling already. I thought the Barbadian ones are it. But we have enough Barbadians, and they are saying, because I don't know, none of it is me, that there's a lot of money in the banks that can be used for these investments. So, and because you're only getting 0.something% for your investment, when you save your money in the bank, and I'm sure you will get more if you invest in the energy sector. But the Prime Minister said, that if these people come in, I think, I don't want to misquote her, but she said 30% must be Barbadian. Must be local. I say 51% must be Barbadian. If you want to come in at all, I don't want them, but if you can come in, 51% should be Barbadian, because 30% don't control anything. Because what they will do, they will not declare dividend. They will send profits out, but they won't declare dividend. So what we need to do is to mobilize the capital that we have here, set it down in the banks, and invest in our own future. Break up this monopoly called Barbados Light and Power Company Limited. But sir, there have been attempts so far where people were getting permission to generate their own electricity. And this is another amazing thing. To show you how this company really with all people, You are generating your own electricity. You're doing it from, let's say, the sun, photovoltaic. But the sun goes down at 6. Now, if you don't have a battery to store, you got to then click on the light and power within the night. So, or buy a battery, an expensive battery that my good friend here, the doctor, doesn't want you to how you're going to dispose of it. I understand his concerns. But if you have these batteries, the battery might be able to charge during the day and use at night. But if you don't have that, you've got to go to light and power. So a lot of people are still opting to stay on the grid. But what happens? Light and power, it charges you 55 cents per unit. 55 cents. But they buy it from you for 41.6 cents. But you are not selling them the excess, The one that you don't want, you have to sell them all and then buy back. So you sell all at 41 cents, 41.6 cents, and then buy back from them for 55 cents. They're ripping you off again. They can't help it. They've been ripping off business for so long, they can't help what they're doing. It is part of their DNA right now. They're more like a mafia. So what must happen? when you come off the grid, if you come off the grid completely,
He has any workers there?
if you come off the grid completely,
Any workers there?
you will now force the other people who are on the grid to pay more. That's the one of the drawbacks from it. Because if you provide your own storage and you have your own electricity to use at night, and you're not on the grid, they are guaranteed their 10% rate of return. Somebody got to pay. So the people remaining on the grid, the rest of us, because I can't afford the system, so the rest of us remaining on the grid will have to pay that cost because they are guaranteed. This nonsense has to stop, you know. If you go out there in any business and you set it up, you have to deal with market forces. If you make money, you make some. If you don't, you don't. But these people are guaranteed an investment. And the thing is, they trick the regulators in Barbados all the time and getting more. Even here when the government wanted them to change the street lights, you know, because more energy efficient street lights. They're saying, but my street lights still have some more value in it, and they charge government for the cost. It ended up when the government did do an assessment, they overcharged the government over $6 million. They have been ripping off anybody that can get their hands on for years. I called for a commission inquiry last week. They need one with them too. They're not as good as you people say, but you were looking at them with the rose-colored spectacles. It's not like they say the swan is graceful on the lake, you know. But you know, underneath the lake, they're paddling really fast. That's what they're doing. They look nice on the surface, but they are just as much monsters as any other employer in Barbados. And they're ripping us off left, right, and center. Imagine 26 years. You know how much money my father paid and everybody else paid for light that they shouldn't have to pay because these people were able to trick a public utilities board that didn't have the wherewithal to see past the tricks that they were putting on them. But I hope now the Fair Trading Commission is more enlightened and that they would be able to get past these two sets of accounts that they do. One for the regulators and one for the profits. Right? Now, I know that these things might sound foreign, but they are true. As I said, sir, I welcome this initiative because if handled correctly, we will not have to look for all that foreign exchange to buy oil. You know, they use the cheapest bunker C fuel oil that you can get, and then they charge you for this fuel charge. They call it fuel clause adjustment. And whenever they want money, they just get that. Mind you, every year in December, they hit you for another thing. Because my own experience, I traveled last year. I'm not telling them where. I traveled last year. Spent 2 weeks out of the country. To St. Lucia, thank you. And for those 2 weeks, with only my fridge on in the house, they charged me more electricity than I had any time the rest of the year. Nobody wasn't there. Nobody wasn't there at all.
Nobody moving, man.
My wife was with me. House was closed. But they do this a lot. Mind you, it seems to be a pattern with the utility companies, you know, because the water authority does it too, pay you for a lot of money. You know, but you seem not to be able to get rid of them. But I see people talking about, oh, how nice they were and all kind of stuff. They're not nice. They are like any other mafia.
Trying to hold up.
I'm in company.
Want to speak?
I'm looking to generate a profit. But they have been taking advantage of a government and people who were too trusting. I challenge them to deny anything that I said. They probably will. But they can't deny it with figures. They rip us off, sir. So when we now have our own systems, as I was saying, it would save foreign exchange, but it will not save us from BLMP. They're going to still be there because a lot of people who will not be able to afford their panels or whatever system that you're using, you still have to rely on them. And they're going to rip you off again some more because for all the money that they're making, the rest of the poor people now going to have to make up. I don't know if the government is giving you tax concessions on the panels and stuff, but I don't know. But if they aren't, I think they should. To get this industry going, I don't know if they're going to ask the people at the Polytechnic to teach people how to make these photovoltaic systems. You know, I know in theory how to do it because it's taught me at school, but I can't get my one myself. I just read and understand what they're saying. They are very cheap in Florida. I looked on the internet and I checked the prices of these panels. Well, I don't know, you saw me in China, but everything is cheap in China, but it don't last. But the system, you know, you import these systems and give people duty-free concessions. Let people generate, let more and more people generate their own electricity. As a matter of fact, one of the conditions of building these new mansions and stuff they're building now should be a component where you have to produce some of your own electricity, if not all. You know, we've been getting there and by buying power from Light and Power, and we have been allowing lots of opportunities for generating power to go out begging. Imagine we have farmers. Why can't these farmers, especially pig farmers, cow farmers, whoever you got, build a digester on their property and use the gas coming from that digester for cooking, use it to power a plant, whatever. So we have a lot of energy, potential energy out there that we are not using. We are relying on fossil fuels, and as long as you got a couple of pigs in there, you have enough energy to power your own household, your own farm, whatever. But we prefer to go. Mind you, the initial investment, I suspect, might be the cost. But that is where government comes in. Government must come in and say to these people, look, if you are prepared to do these things, then it will be duty-free. They will be VAT-free. There will be all those kinds of things free, because in the end, you are saving government foreign exchange, because all the power that you use, there is a foreign exchange component attached to it right now, because it is generated by oil. And we don't produce much oil. As a matter of fact, even if we produce oil, we've got to send it somewhere to get refined somewhere here. So it is still a component of foreign exchange that we could do without. We have the potential, we have the knowledge better than them. We have the potential and we can manage anything. But we just need the investment, and we need a government that is willing to put its money where its mouth is. The last one was talking about all of this. How much energy they said about 2010 or 2014? How much that they will have? How much? 40% by 2010. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that. At 2014. But rather than do that, they sell off the Light and Power shares to make money, and they tax everything that can come. They were not serious, they were just talking. They were sound pretty. I hope you and Don talk pretty. I hope you mean what you're saying. I hope the provisions of this bill will lead to some sort of transformation, some sort of revolution in the
Am I right that we are not concluding?
Supply of energy in this country. We have free sunlight. Doesn't cost us a thing. Free wind. And we have energy. You can put whatever turbines out, put them in the East Coast. And they can produce so much electricity, it ain't funny. But you must be willing to have the upfront investment. You can't put it in St. Thomas Sand, it's got to be on the coast. You know? But we must be willing to have the investment. The upfront money, give people concessions to do it. A lot of people, Bajans are normally risk averse. They don't like risk. But if you show them, yes, if you show them how, you know, the government went into industrialization, hotels, and all kind of stuff by showing the people what to do. Some of it worked and some of it didn't. The industrialization thing didn't work, but we're supposed to stop. We got to keep going. You can't say, well, we failed the last time, so we're going to try again. You got to keep trying, and you got to and precisely, you have to take the people along with you. You can't talk down to them. You got to show them how it is possible, and even if government is willing to do like how they did with CBC, you know, they showed you, you know, they had one word system in the country before, and the government showed you how to have a radio station and TV station and stuff. And the next step should have been stepping up the market when it's established and moving on. Right? That was the initial, I figured that was the initial thinking behind this stuff. Just like Hilton, you know, you wanted tourism to start growing, you build a large hotel and show the people how it is done. Then you should move out. No, government should be able to go into this renewable energy and show people how it is done and move out. Mind you, we have people who are willing to show you how it is done, but they want 60%. And what they're proposing, and I think it is unfair, you're proposing, okay, look, you people cannot afford the solar panels and stuff. We will give you the solar panels. And you will put these solar panels on your house. They will generate electricity to the grid. And then the excess will come to me. And your thing will come to my house forever and ever and ever and ever. And you're making money for me. Doesn't sound fair. There's got to be some sort of partnership. If you want to use my surface roof, then I should get something from it. The problem here is that everybody wants to make the money for themselves. Nobody wants to make the money for me and somebody else. Everybody wants all. So, Mr. President, I am not opposed to this bill. I welcome it, and I'm sorry that it didn't come long before any of us was in the Senate, because the time was ripe for it long ago. Prime Minister has, in her style, rushed everything, and I'm sure because of this rushing we can get some things done, not done correctly, but at least there's an initial first step. There's an initial first step that, trust me, I welcome. Anything to wrestle, and I don't want to sound corny, wrestle power away from light and power. No pun intended at all. Any effort to wrestle power away from them, because they have had this country over barrel for years. Even Senator Greenwich thought they were good. They had him fooled too. But they're not, sir. We need this bill. We just didn't need a mirror. And if we can find a way to let them go about their business happily and let Barbadians invest in their own thing. I don't want people coming in from Germany and all of places that thing. We have the capital here. We have the people who should be able to see for themselves. Now, if I had the money, I think I would put in some. But poor me. But the others, and I heard that Senator, according to, not me, I don't know, according to Senator Wiggins, Senator Cummings has a lot of it, and she could put in some too. But we don't need, I don't think we need all this foreign investment. This is not rocket science. This is simple photovoltaic thing, transferring it down the lines, changing it from AC, DC to, change it from direct current to alternate current, and call that Wally. It isn't high science.
I think you ought to repeat that simple formula.
It isn't high science. You know, you produce direct current, sir. You produce direct current, DC. But the power that we use in our house is alternating current. So you have to have some sort of inverter to change it.
Must be.
You try to change it to alternating current. That technology has been there forever. You can do it on a larger scale, but the technology is still there. We don't need people to teach us anymore. We can teach people how to do these things. I hear we were leaders in solar energy, solar water heating, and we allow people to get past us and take off because we are afraid to go out there and shine. You know? No, Barbadians were on the cutting edge of this solar technologies, and the next logical step was producing electricity, but we held back. We held back. We must stop holding ourselves back. Stop being afraid to take risks. There's some things you can always make it, but we take the risk, and we will be far better. Right now, we will not have a mirror sending all our money overseas at the end of the year. For what? Because somebody get them national insurance shares? They might have no real investment in this country. They're making more money than anybody else, and they didn't really do any of the pioneer work. It had nothing to do with them. It was just pure 30 pieces of silver that these people did. Well, the last government wants to 30 because they know what you're talking about. They sold us out. Right now, when the government is negotiating with them, I think we should be negotiating their exit. We can handle our stuff. Sorry. I have some notes here, but on second thought, I'm not going to call them because they're a bit inflammatory. Yeah, and I was going to talk about the people who trying now to power in on the market now. You see, as I'm open, they can't help it, because they have a system where every time an opportunity turns up, certain category of people in this country rush, and a certain group rush to get it. I remember when it came to recycling, garbage disposal, the last government gave away a contract and said, look, you can make $20 million of that money. You make $20 million. And without a cent of their money, they said, well, go to the bank and say, look, we have a contract, we guaranteed to make $20 million, so are you going to lend us some money so we can build a plant? They want to do the same thing here too. Sir, we have to be careful with that. I am not racist. I'm not anything of the sort. I'm only saying that people like us should be able to benefit from whatever is happening in this country. This is a new area of investment where you cannot lose. As long as people want power, you can't lose. And first of all, sir, the fuel for this thing is the sun or the wind. And I'll tell you something, our way of energy. I'll tell you something. This same Emera, some years ago, there was a lot of talk about how you were having problems with wind turbines, and they were causing people to get sick and all kind of energy. And those people decided that they're going to take Josie Hill and St. Lucie because it was an enclave, you know. Everybody that lived in Josie Hill were there for more than 25 years. And they wanted to set up these wind turbines in Josie Hill to use the people down there as guinea pigs for a bit of greater study that they were using in Canada, wherever else they're coming from. You know, that is what they want us for. I was part of the effort to stop them. And I'm happy about that. Now, a friend of mine who lived down there, he called me and said, Caswell, if anybody gets this topic again, you come up, we want your help. So I went down there and I helped them. They were so interested in Barbados and stuff that they wanted to use a section of our population so they can monitor their health to see if the wind turbines were really doing damage to people. And they were going to do it on Josie Hill. I challenged them on that again too. You know, they want to get rid of them, man. Get rid of them. And the national insurance, but back the share, do something. But it's about time we take responsibility because our energy security, see, should not be in the hands of anybody else. The energy security for this country should be in the hands of Barbadians and regulated by Barbadians, owned by Barbadians. We don't need any foreign investment in this area now. Barbados is a little place. But in no way they want to come and work here. They want to come and operate here. Over the years, people have been ripping us and make a lot of money, ripping us off and make a lot of money. So they want to continue that process. That's all it is. You know, cable and wireless, Barbados was the most profitable market they had. Why? Because we business don't complain about anything. You know, if they start selling electricity $100 unit, business can grumble, but they can pay. You know, see that is the mentality that you have. That you want to have. Next thing you know, you can tell me that they want foreign investment in small business too. No.
Please address the chair, sir.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that. See, that's the mentality that we have in this country. So you think like everything foreign got to be good. We have the sun. The sun rises on Barbados, and we use it.
It's good cricketing advice, you know. The batsman doesn't have to play at every ball.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. But never got that cricket. You know, so we look, right now I understand where the good scientists is talking about foreign investment because foreign investment brings in foreign exchange and the government cash starved. That is a narrow focus that we think about, that we are looking at now. You need money, you need it badly. That's why we sold the foreign the shares and like the power, you know, because they need money, they need it badly. There are things that you don't sell. And our energy security, if we can guarantee it, should be in local hands. We don't need foreigners being responsible for our energy security. That is as simple as that. If you want to get foreign investment, they can blackmail you. You see here, right now, just give an example. We don't have an airline, and we have tourists coming in. You know, the people can tell Barbados, look, if you don't give us $20 million to land it over a year, we're not bringing our planes to your country, so you ain't getting the tourists, you know. They can do that to us because we don't have the airline. We relying on other people. So if you don't have to rely on other people, don't. We have to rely on the airplane because we ain't got the airplanes. But we got the wind, we got the sun, we got the sea. Just we need now some capital, and if you give people the incentive to invest in them, then you don't need foreign nationals, foreign companies, foreign anything to come here and invest in our energy sector. We had it for too long, and it is costing us too much. With those few words, sir, I'm much obliged to you.
Senator Nurse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I shall be pretty brief, but I just want to say that I am happy to see that the government is pushing ahead with these renewable energy initiatives. I think it is important, even although we have seen perhaps over the last 10 years or so, a kind of a, what I would call stabilization in the prices, the world fuel prices. I know 10, 12 years ago, every day the local stations were bombarded with consumers who were very concerned and about the cost of their electricity bills. Those were the days, of course, when the fuel adjustment clause was like 41 cents. It has dropped considerably now to 20-something cents. And it has been like that for a couple of years now. In situations like these, governments may tend not to see it as such a big priority anymore. But I say to the government, stay the course on this. It is a term that is used very frequently these days, and I think it is most appropriate in this situation for the energy sector. We know what the issues are in terms of fossil fuel. We know the volatility of fossil fuels. We know how they can be effective, Mr. President, because of some issue in the Middle East. We know how fickle energy traders are. And so therefore, while we have had the good fortune over the past few years of having reasonably stable, I wouldn't say necessarily say low, but stable fuel adjustment price, we know that any day it can change. We know the situation between the U.S. and Venezuela. We know the situation between the United States and Iran. And all of these things can very easily blow and cause impacts on this energy sector. And it is even more important for a country like Barbados. Barbados, for example, has a per capita consumption of electricity, which is something like 60% more than its Caribbean neighbors, and in some cases, like 10% more than a lot of the other countries in the world. This, of course, is because of our high level of development relative to some other countries, but particularly because of the high consumption in the tourism sector. And we have heard Senator Grant on more than one occasion make the point that Barbados has to remain competitive in the tourism sector. We're not competing against the Caribbean, but we are competing against the world, against all the players in the world. And therefore, it is important to be able to influence, as far as possible, one of the biggest costs that impacts that industry. 60% of the consumption, as I understand it, in the hotel sector, of the energy consumption in the hotel sector, goes towards air conditioning rooms, goes towards heating pools, goes towards laundry and kitchen services. And so if we are to be able, if the sector, if the tourism sector is to, and the hospitality sector is to be able to keep prices down and be competitive, it means for us that we have to be able to deliver to them a relatively manageable and cheap electric and power services. That is not to say, of course, that the industry itself must not be doing a number of things to help to be more cost efficient. And so I would like to see, of course, more interest shown by the industry itself in being involved in alternative sources of energy, such as the PV systems. And if there were to, perhaps it may be necessary for government to give some more incentives to the industry to encourage that them in that direction. Now I know government is under tremendous strain because we are under a program, the IMF program, and so it is not that easy to give further incentives. But I think this is so important to this sector, and because the sector is overall contributes so much to the gross domestic product of Barbados, in fact, the number one exporter of services, that it is important to make sure that we don't allow that industry to falter. And we must ensure, therefore, that tourism prices are not affected significantly by any increase in energy prices. So, while we have no control over the energy price movements, we can save in the long run by diversifying the energy mix and improving the efficiency of energy consumption. And while we haven't heard an overall energy policy enunciated as yet by government, we have snippets of it. We know, for example, that government is speaking to a 2030 deadline for full renewable energy. We know that this bill itself seeks to open up the situation to encourage independent, other independent users to get involved in perhaps the production and transmission and distribution of electricity. And so therefore, I would like to think that as the government seeks to negotiate a new license with the Barbados Light and Power, that it will be insisted that perhaps even the Light and Power itself become more involved in producing electricity from renewable energy sources, such as wind. I know Senator Franklin has had some concerns, perhaps with wind turbines and so. But there are other systems. The Light and Power itself has started. Has a solar farm. They set up a solar farm. But I would like to see them going more in that direction. I know their parent company, Emera, for example, was heavily involved in renewable energy sources. And I would like to think that that interest of the parent company will be pushed down onto the company in Barbados. I also like to speak in the context, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, of not only reducing our energy in terms of the electricity which being produced, but I would like to hear the overall policy of government in terms of developing, for example, electric vehicles. We know that we've heard that the Transport Board, for example, has started or is looking at looking at the possibility of introducing electric buses. But one of the things that may have affected the development of electric vehicles in the country is the high cost of duties. And that is so in Barbados and in the Caribbean, perhaps the only country in the Caribbean that it comes to mind right now which has removed duties and other customs duties and other taxes on electric vehicles is Trinidad. And I think if we are to get that aspect of our energy policy moving, we should also, government may also have to look at the level of duties and taxes on electric vehicles and see how individuals and government itself and the business community could be encouraged to go the route of electric vehicles. Finally, I also want to touch on, and again, as I said, it's a matter of staying the course, because I've noticed that when we look at the Barbados Water Authority, for example, one of the biggest costs to producing the water is the cost of electricity to pump the water out of the earth. I've noticed that a PV system has been set up so far at one of the pumping stations. But I would urge government to see this, and government and the water authority, to see this as a tremendous importance, that every pumping station in the country has a renewable energy source in order to be able to reduce the overall cost of producing water. And who knows, in time, we may be able to take that tax that is currently on our water off, and the water authority will be in a position to produce water at a much lower cost, and also be able to do a number of the other things which need to be done, like, for example, mains replacement, and all the other things, the sewage, and so on. And so this aspect of government's policy of getting that energy cost down and of allowing others to be able to come into the sector and to produce should, I think, serve us well in the long term. And I encourage government to continue on that path. And with those few comments, Mr. President, I'm obliged to you.
Senator Holder, the next on my list.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I'm very pleased for the opportunity to make a very short contribution. Unlike my colleague, Senator Grant, this will be short. This afternoon, Mr. President, I felt the need to rise to support the amendments before us. And I'll couch my short presentation by inviting us to reflect on the fact that this government has seen the need to decentralize, I like to call it, decentralize the role of our major utility as we seek to develop our energy sector. Unlike comments that I heard earlier where a senator sought to pillory the Barbados Light and Power company with some unfortunate comments, I would suggest, Mr. President, I will not do so. I obviously will not stand to defend them. I'm sure all of us in this chamber agree that the Barbados Light and Power has contributed positively to the development of Barbados' economy for decades. And I'm sure Senator Drake, in her earlier contribution, agreed that the Barbados Light and Power was playing a significant role in the development of Barbados' economy. It is unfortunate that others don't feel the same. And the attack, Mr. President, on the Barbados Labour Party also I found to be unjustified for the simple reason we've seen the work being done by our administration. I'm not so sure if the member was mixing it up. I know that he's still a card-carrying member of the Barbados Labour Party. Not so sure why, you know, this is the Barbados Labour Party administration in power. I'm told that there's another one that he's acquainted with, this PP, DD, Doodoo, something like that. PP and Doodoo party, I think it is. But Mr. President, this afternoon, the Barbados Labour Party administration has demonstrated its commitment to decentralizing our efforts and bringing as many investors on board, small and large. Yes, we are not following the Arthur Lewis policy of old, as it was scripted back then, industrialization by invitation, but we understand that there is a need for foreign direct investment. But we will ensure that we regulate these sectors for the interest and benefit of all Barbadians. Mr. President, this bill before us represents our effort at a new market structure for the energy sector and shifting the monopoly that existed. I heard a senator speak to this utility company and the monopoly that it had for decades, and we are seeking now to decentralize that. We're seeking to spread the ownership within the energy sector that others can contribute and play a part. This is why the amendments before us look at the ability to offer licenses, and might I remind, in this case I'll call Senator Franklin's name. Might I remind Senator Franklin that we are debating, Mr. President, this bill that seeks to provide separate licenses for anyone who wants to get involved in the generation of energy, transmission, distribution, storage, dispatch, and sales. That is what we are debating. That is what this bill is intended to do. And so, Mr. President, I think moving towards the development of the renewable energy sector, we understand will assist us in looking at realizing some 40, they tell me it's 40 megawatts by the end of 2019. I think we are about 21.6, 22 megawatts of energy at present. So we want to be able to decentralize that others can get involved. I don't think that this is unheard of. Research suggests that Jamaica and Antigua and Barbuda and Belize have followed a very similar paths, because we understand the need for clean energy, and we got all the technocrats this morning speaking to why this is important. But might I add, relative to the whole issue of investment, there's an UNCTAD report, Mr. President, that suggested recently that there's a need for significant acceleration relative to the investment needs of our states, our smaller developing states in particular, if we are going to meet the sustainable development goals. If we had all the capital here to do it, then we would not have to invite investors. But the facts are, we don't. Yes, we heard about $9 billion in savings by Barbadians in the commercial banks and credit union system and so on. I think Senator Cummings was said to have had a significant contribution of that by a member this morning. By a member said that this morning. But the fact is that alone will not even do it for us, because research suggests, Mr. President, that we need to be able to have at least $60 to $100 million of investment every year for the next 10 years in order to bring us to that place that we need to get to relative to the use of renewable energy. So yes, Senator Tate, I heard you on that one. But the facts are, we do not have all of the capital here. Those are the facts. Let's agree with that. And therefore, we need to attract investment. So I am satisfied, Mr. President, that with the appropriate regulation of the sector, that we would ensure that we're able to attract the kind of capital we need to help us to build out the renewable energy sector in Barbados. I'm satisfied that we're headed in the right direction. But, Mr. President, I want to really make a second point, a more substantive point relative to the issue of incentivizing the private sector to get involved. I heard this point being made this morning, and I quite agree that we need to look at how can we get our private sector involved. Now, in this effort at moving towards a more energy efficient society, the government is about to launch, in collaboration with the IADB and the EU, the Energy Smart Fund, or the Smart Fund 2, as it is called. It is the second iteration. The first one, I believe, had an even smaller window, but this is going to have a capitalization of some $50 million US dollars. And this Smart Fund 2, I understand, is intended, Mr. President, to work hand in glove, as it were, with the efforts to see Barbados become that fossil fuel-free country by 2030, etc. So this Smart Fund 2 will look at a number of things. One, to retrofit public buildings using performance-based contracts. It also speaks to the promotion of energy efficiency and renewable energy through a lending scheme. This is going to be administered by the Enterprise Growth Fund, targeting mainly hotels and small and medium enterprises. It also includes the demonstration and innovation of programs designed to look at smart grids, energy storage, electric mobility, and other innovative forms of renewable energy generation, and so on. So it has, Mr. President, some laudable goals. I commend the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources for putting together the project implementation unit to be able to administer this, and obviously for the IADB and the EU again for coming on board. But might I add, as the team gets ready to launch this project, that we learn from Smart Fund 1. Because Smart Fund 1 also wanted to provide grants and low-interest loans to SMEs in particular to help to retrofit their operations. The data is there. I believe the report has been done. The lessons learned have been compiled relative to Smart Fund 1. So let us learn from this exercise and recognize that we may very well need to tweak, we may very well need to improve the overall program if we want to see the uptake from our micro, small, and medium enterprises. For the simple reason, Mr. President, there was not a huge uptake last time. The minimum amount accessed by an individual applicant was $150,000. Yes, the interest rate was attractive enough, but $150,000, and therefore there was not the level of uptake that we wanted to see. I want to suggest that we consider lowering that amount, lowering that threshold to, smaller chunks. First of all, we want to have a combination of grants to allow firms to be able to access these resources that they can conduct energy audits in their plants, energy audits for their firms. And then we want to be able to make at least $25,000 at a very minimum available to micro firms, small firms, and so on, that they can access at lower interest, to put into their business. The facts are, most of us, when you look around the chamber, I see all the ladies, they have their nails done very nicely. Clearly, they go to some nail technician, somewhere that is using the fossil fuel to fuel their operation. So they have some nail salon somewhere. They get their hair done. The guys are going and getting their grooming done. Senator Grant always looks very sharp and all that. So the facts are, these are small firms. These are micro firms, the nail tech, the hair salon, those producing condiments for sale in the supermarkets and so on. These are small firms. And I'm suggesting that instead of them using the traditional sources of energy, that we can incentivize them to be able to access the energy fund to retrofit their operations, that they can put the solar panels. The agribusiness, they too can move to that stage where they're using the solar panels within their operations. We boast, Mr. President, of being maybe the first country in this hemisphere to have developed this piece of technology. But we've only used it in our homes. We've only used it really to warm our water. And I love the ad with the little boy who don't want to go into the shower because the water is too cold. And yes, all of us in here can identify with that. But the facts are, those of us who actually do take a shower, Senator Franklin.
Yeah, you won't cover that.
All right? So, you see? So what I'm saying is that we need to be able, Mr. President, to move to the stage where those type of businesses, the agribusiness sector in particular, I have the pleasure now of working with a small team to access the Green Climate Fund for the agribusiness sector, those who are in the fish processing and other type, similar type of endeavor, that they can move to the point where they literally retrofit their operations. So as to move away from the fossil fuel, but also to bring down the energy costs. And as you're able to bring your energy costs down, then the inputs into your operations are reduced. And ultimately, it makes your product a lot cheaper, it makes your product a lot more competitive, especially if you're seeking to export into extra-regional sources. So I'm of the view, Mr. President, that with this Smart Fund 2 about to come on stream, that there is a need now to rethink its modality. It cannot be $150,000, or you're going to find that those smaller firms, those micro firms, those nail technicians and cosmetologists, etc., those agribusiness firms and so on, will not be able to access because they don't need $150,000. And even if they do, they may not be able to meet the criteria to so access. We need to rethink that. Yes, we want to retrofit government buildings and all that, but I'm satisfied that this thrust towards having and developing a renewable energy sector should benefit significantly the private sector. Should benefit micro and small firms in particular, and help them to use the technology, help them to apply the technology in their businesses to make their operations more competitive. So, Mr. President, I indicated that I will be very brief, and I plan on honoring that. Just to suggest to us that some incentives have been there. Some incentives have been there, and I think the government has sought to ensure that they put in place, incentives to attract persons to the sector. Loans at 4% interest rate for businesses to retrofit. We know that there are certain fiscal incentives, including up to a 10-year tax waiver for firms who want to install, manufacture, or research renewable energy systems that produce electricity and so on. And there are other tax deductibles that you can access as well. And we think that the mechanism is therefore there to help from the investment perspective, yes, but as I said, I want to see more MSMEs being able to access the resources that are being provided, that they too can retrofit their operations and thus become a lot more competitive, not only in the domestic market, but for the export arena. So, Mr. President, with those few words, I want to signal my support to these amendments. I believe that we're heading in the right direction, and let the opposition senator be aware that, yes, it is the Barbados Labour Party administration that is in power at this time. I don't like it.
Senator Moore?
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, let me thank all senators who contributed to this very important debate. I think I don't need to, I'll be very brief, Mr. President. I don't think I need to rehash everything that's already been said, but we all, I think, will agree that renewable energy sources is a must for small island states with all of the global warming issues that confront us. This amendment and its focus on renewables and certainly PV, so photovoltaic. Oftentimes people are doubtful about anything that's new, anything that they're not familiar with. I recall many, many years ago when solar water heating was first prevalent in Barbados. There are a lot of people, like anything else. But we can see today, and it was mentioned in here, just how prolific solar water heating is on our island. It's everywhere. Certainly when you land, I think one of my colleagues, senators, said, you can see it. All the sheer number that are on people's buildings. And the amount of money that Barbadians have saved over the years with solar. And I remember then it was thought to be ever so expensive, and a lot of people could not afford it. And they would get a tax break in order to be able to, once they put it into their homes. And also, financial institutions would have been of great assistance in lending people money to put in solar water systems. The amount of money it costs today, certainly when you look at it, what it would have been 30-odd years ago, it's a substantial amount of money. Very similar to what you see now with PV systems. So as time goes on, I think that more and more creativity will be lent to that situation. I think Senator Holder has certainly been very expansive and certainly extremely informative to those present and anyone hearing her about the Energy Fund 2, assisted by IDB and the EU. And it allows for Barbadians, and it facilitates competition in Barbados. It facilitates entrepreneurship and certainly economic enfranchisement of Barbadians. The comments were certainly and constructive, and they were not in any way sometimes people don't understand the seriousness of some of these issues. And this is an extremely serious issue because the government has a long-term goal for renewables for 2030. And so I don't know if it's productive to have just broadsides on individual companies and things like that. Because at the end of the day, there's no perfection in life, so there are no perfect companies. But I oftentimes, Mr. President, what one will find is that imperfect situations or organizations draw comments from imperfect people. Nevertheless, moving on with what is more salient, Mr. President, is that alternative energy and its sources are a must for this country. Renewable energy also does something that I think I must just mention very briefly, and it opens a door for young people to have career choices. Certainly up at the community college, there is the opportunity now for people to be trained in many different aspects of this as is ongoing. I think some months ago I had the opportunity to go up with the Minister of Energy to see some of what had been done and is being done by these students. So it gives people another avenue in a changing world for career choices. There's nothing wrong with the careers that we've had for many, many generations, but certainly people are looking for alternative modes for supporting themselves and their families, and this is certainly one. And is in various areas, production, management, the whole gamut of what one would expect within any sector. And I'm very glad that the educational institutions in Barbados are firmly on board in what they can clearly see as a must for our country. So, Mr. President, without going into any more detail, except to say that all of the contributions, or the majority of the contributions today, were informative, I just want to make one brief clarification. It was said here that we would like to see 51% local ownership. Now, Barbados, like most countries, we sign on to agreements and arrangements, and we are a law-abiding, well-run democracy. And certainly, under the World Trade Organization rules, we could not do 51% ownership, because the general agreement on trade in services, which includes the provision of utility services, at Article 14, restricts members, and I will quote, from limitations on the percentage of foreign capital in terms of maximum percentage limit on foreign shareholding or the total value of individuals or aggregate foreign investment. So in other words, the government can't say to someone, we are restricting you, because then we would be in violation of a well-established World Trade Organization rule and practice. But then again, it is a Barbados Labour Party that's in government. And so thankfully, we understand what it means to live up to your obligations, regardless of what those obligations may be, Mr. President, and all of our treaties, Mr. President. So I would just want to have that brief comment. Nevertheless, I would hope that all senators present will support this amendment to the Electric Light and Power Amendment Bill 2019. And with those very few words, Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Question is that the bill currently under consideration be now read a second time. All honourable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
So, Mr. President, I now beg to move that Your Honor do leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that I do now leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate for the further consideration of this bill in detail. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it, and we are now in committee. Over to you, Gabby.
The Senate is now in committee.
Clauses 1 to 5, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 1 to 5 stand part.
The question is that clauses 1 to 5 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 6 to 9.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clauses 6 to 9 stand part.
The question is that clauses 6 to 9 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report as honour the President the passing of one bill in committee.
Question is that I do now report his honour the President the passing of one bill in committee. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported to me the passage of the bill under consideration in committee.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill now be read a third time.
Question is that the bill under consideration be now read a third time. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. No pass.
Mr. President, I move that this bill do no pass and be cited as the Electric Light and Power Act 2019.
Question is that the bill under consideration do now pass and be so cited. Honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Yeah,
The bill is now being passed.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill do no pass and be cited as the Electric Light and Power Amendment Bill 2019. Amendment Act 2019.
Question is that the bill do now pass and be cited as the Electric Light and Power Amendment Act 2019. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Think the ayes have it. The bill is now being passed and be so cited. This is the adjournment now. What are you doing now? Are you taking the adjournment?
Mr. President, that now brings us to the end of government business for today. I beg to move that the Senate do now adjourn, sine die.
Question is that this session of the Senate be now adjourned without a day appointed. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it, and we are now adjourned without a day appointed.
Speak on the adjournment.
I just want to speak on the adjournment.
Yes, you can, you can. I'm not objecting, you can.
You can stand and speak on the adjournment.
Speak on the adjournment if you wish.
Just to say to senators that we may meet next week, maybe, but the
At this
4th,
point, that is not too clear.
week after next, the 4th.
But that's not
Um,
clear, but it'll be
It's
notified.
probably not clear,
Not written in stone.
no. But maybe,
Should
maybe
be
the
notified
4th.
in due course.
So I just want to give you plenty of notice. And the clerk will explain the medical, maybe debating a medical cannabis bill.
Amendments that are being made to
So we are now adjourned until we've been notified, as to when next we should come back. So for now, we adjourn before the day appointed.